All right, so I'm at the Berkeley campus in front of, this is Sproul Hall behind us, right?
Yeah.
And what's your name?
Vivian.
You're Vivian?
Uh-huh.
Are you a Berkeley resident?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how long have you lived here?
Oh, about 54 years.
54 years. Wow. And what do you do here, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm
Or
retired.
what did you, yeah.
I'm retired.
Yeah. Okay. And you were telling me about the encampment that took place here.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I wish you could have seen the encampment. It was just beautiful. It was peaceful. We came several days to observe it. And on the Friday, it was very moving because Friday, is the Muslim day of prayer. Like
Right.
Sundays for Christians and Saturdays for Jews. And on Friday, about 1 o'clock, there were, I would guess, maybe 200 Muslims with their prayer rugs, the men in front, the women in back. And an imam was there, and they did their prayer service, and they had a sermon. I went twice. One time it was in English, so I understood it, and the other time it was in Arabic, so I didn't know what he was saying. But the whole time that they were at prayer, the non-Muslim community surrounded them like a peaceful protector. Like it was just beautiful to see. And so were Jews in the group that were a rabbi friend of mine was there, and everybody waited peacefully for a while. You had to stand there for at least 45 minutes to an hour, and respectfully, and the love and respect was palpable. It was like what the world should really be, that we should respect one another, that we should love one another, that we should be at peace with one another. This is what is my hope for the future.
And there were many Jewish students in the encampment, right?
There were several that I knew that were
Right.
Jewish
Yeah.
people, and one rabbi that I knew was there, and
Right.
others, I don't know what they were. They obviously were not Muslims.
Right.
They were probably a mixture of atheists, agnostics, Christians, and who knows what, maybe
Right.
other things that I can't think of right now.
So there was the Friday prayer that day, and you were there. You were
Yeah,
present
we were
when
there
that happened.
Observing. We were
Right.
there observing, and this beautiful ring of. It reminded me of a story I once heard from a Catholic priest who lived in Jakarta, Indonesia. It was a beautiful story. He told me that there had been some unrest in Jakarta, and he was a little concerned because he was going to do the midnight mass for Christmas, and he was in the that's okay. He was in a main downtown church, and he said he was a little bit worried because he was the head celebrant there, and they came out and they had a beautiful midnight Christmas mass. They came out at midnight, and they were totally surrounded by a protective guard of Muslim men who had protected the church the whole night while they were having their Christmas service.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, this is the kind of respect that we need to show for one another.
Right.
We shouldn't be hating people because we're different religion or a different race or a different ethnicity or whatever it is. We should respect and love everybody.
Right. Right.
We're all God's children.
Yeah.
So there.
And have you been standing here for some weeks now, or how long have you
We
been?
have a Women in Black. We have Women in Black here
Uh-huh.
on Friday. And I've been doing it since I retired, which is 21 years.
So what is Women in Black?
Women in Black is a worldwide movement. It was started in Jerusalem by Jewish women who didn't want to see their children killed. They were joined by Palestinian women who didn't want to see their children killed. And they met in downtown Jerusalem in, it was downtown Tel Aviv. I'm sorry, downtown Tel Aviv. And February of 1988, and it began. And November of 1988, it started here on the Berkeley campus.
Wow,
The same
yeah,
year.
yeah.
It was started by a French woman named Odile
Mm-hmm.
here in Berkeley. And it's a worldwide movement. You'll find it all over the world in small towns. And I know there's some up on the coast of Northern California, the little tiny towns, and they have a women in black group.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's men in our group. We have a male auxiliary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dedicated to peace, world peace. Most of the groups are focused on Palestine because this is the major injustice that we're conscious of in our world today.
Right.
But in Bosnia, they focused on their own conflicts
Right.
there. So it's not universally focused on Palestine, but it is pretty much.
Right.
That's where the big problem is right
Right,
now. So
yeah.
that's where we're
It's
focused.
the most
But
blatant,
It's
yeah.
an anti-war.
Right.
It's
Okay.
the insanity of killing other people's children. you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent. I'll look up the group. So, what do you think is the sentiment in Berkeley about the Gaza situation? Has over the last 7-8 months or whatever, have you seen a change? What do you notice both among students and non-students in Berkeley? What are you noticing?
Well, there's two things
Uh-huh.
I've noticed is that over the years, as
Uh-huh.
people learn more about what's going on,
Right.
they understand the injustices that the Palestinians have been suffering for a
Right.
good number of years, so well over 75.
Right.
And so, there's not everybody, but a lot of people have become more conscious about it and outraged at the injustice.
Yeah.
But at this time, with all of the publicity in the last year,
Mm-hmm.
there's much more sympathy for the plight of the Palestinian
Palestinians.
people.
Yeah.
And the other thing that is really tragic, considering Berkeley's long history of being in the forefront of fights for human rights,
Right.
is that our city council has refused to issue a call for a ceasefire.
Uh-huh.
And it is just tragic because, back in the day when we were struggling for South Africa for human rights, the city council was very progressive. And
Right.
Newport was the mayor, and he was out there, leading the charge. And Mandela came to the Bay Area
Uh-huh.
on his first visit to the United States.
Right.
Berkeley was way part of it, as was the Oakland Longshoremen.
Right.
But nowadays, the city council in Berkeley is they have, like you said, they have turned a deaf ear and a blind eye.
Right.
They will not deal with it. And they have, Richmond was the first city in the United States to call for a ceasefire.
Oh, is that right?
So,
Yeah.
And then Oakland called for a ceasefire. I think Hayward did. Not El Cerrito, but Albany did. But Berkeley has lost lost the leadership that we once had.
The city has. What about the university? University's leadership, the university's attitude.
Well, the one good thing I can say for the university is that they didn't call the police on
Right.
them. Yeah.
Unlike
yeah.
UCLA and what happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had a very peaceful.
Yeah, it was all
we had
very peaceful.
There was
Yeah.
No, so I can say that good for them. I would like to see them stronger at speaking
Yeah.
out. They should be. All these universities should be leading human rights
Right.
institutions, and they should, be for equal human rights for
And
everybody.
when you interacted with the students during the encampment, which by the way was right behind us, because
Yeah,
this is Prowl Hall right there, so it was literally right here.
Yeah.
About how many people? Were there a few hundred people
It
or?
would vary from time to
From time,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was there 24 hours.
Right.
So I'd usually come up in the afternoon to vigil for a couple hours.
Okay.
And there were maybe 300 people sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Were they also spilling out in this in this pathway or
Well, yeah,
was-
there were people
on the steps? Yes.
And people in the plaza there.
Right.
And there were always some UC police up on the balcony watching the whole thing. But,
Right.
But they didn't do anything.
Right.
They didn't bother anybody. And there were a lot of people. I would say, sometimes there were probably 500 people, but
Right.
it varied a lot.
It grew and depending
and I
on
didn't come at night, or I didn't
Right.
come early in the morning.
And I'm not sure. I didn't follow up on Berkeley how it, they disbanded, but different universities. Some said, okay, we'll look into divestment. The BDS. What happened at Berkeley? How did it? What was the?
As far as I understand, when school closed down, there were protests here before the encampment.
Right.
They were beautiful. There were beautiful protests before the encampment, including a funeral procession that was just magnificent. And before the encampment, the Seder Gate there had banners across to divest banners and students there. And people were very peaceful going through there. And the Jewish Voice for Peace had a little table where they were, and a Muslim group had a little table there, and they were playing some recordings from Gaza.
Yeah.
They played one of them. They played the recording of this little girl, Hind Rajab, that died, that was killed. They played her call for help. And the procession, the funeral procession, started up at the Campanile and wove all around there. There were hundreds of people.
Really?
Hundreds, even 1,000 people. And they read the names of the dead. It was like a prayer service. They read the names of the dead. A little bit of a competition here.
Right.
They read the names of the dead, and then after each one they would say, "We are not numbers. We are not numbers." I guess that was the call, and
That's
it was
very powerful.
It was very reverent. And moving, and solemn. And there was maybe one speech. I remember one professor gave a speech. But it made you realize the seriousness of all of these lives that have been innocent lives
lost,
that have been
all the children
taken, stolen, stolen from them.
Right.
So
well, one last thing for you. You've been here in Berkeley for 54 years, more than half a century. So this is going back to the 70s, 80s. What is your sense of particularly in terms of students, their consciousness, their awareness of these issues, the way they are now? Like, how do you see them today? What do you think is happening with them? What's on their minds? What do they want?
I think they're waking up to the fact that this is far beyond just Gaza and Palestine.
They're making some connections.
Number one, the great other cause for young people is the environment. And the greatest polluter of the environment is
the U.S. military.
And I think it's dawning on people. We do all these little things like recycling our garbage but we're burning fossil fuel like
maybe
crazy.
It's not enough.
The bombing,
right.
Boeing dropping the bombs. The fuel. It's like this. We fight the wars to get the fuel. To fight the wars to get the fuel.
It's a cycle.
And we're destroying the planet.
Right.
And it's suicidal.
Right.
It's suicidal. And our politicians are so disappointing for the most part. I mean, there are a few really good ones like Jamal Bowman. I'm rooting for him. But on Cory Bush, there are some really good ones out there. But the vast majority of them are lunatics.
Right.
I mean, they've got their eyes closed.
They're mad people.
They're
mad. They're absolutely mad.
It's like you picked the most incompetent people to run the world.
Right.
I mean, not to mention like India. They've got Modi over there.
Right.
He's another one.
Right.
It's just insane. And Biden could stop this Gaza thing in a second.
Sure.
Just
stop the weapons and the funding, and that's the end of that. So do you think the students are drawing more connections between capitalism, empire, the
yeah.
abuse of the environment, and war,
Yeah.
and then this genocide. It's not. They're not looking at this issue in isolation.
That's
Is that what
correct.
you're saying, right?
Yeah, there's what do they call it? Intersectionality. There's way more, and not to mention immigration.
Right.
You know,
Immigration too,
and
yeah.
what global warming has a lot to do with
Right.
immigration.
Creating
You know,
refugees, people
so they
fleeing.
do connect
Yes.
the issues. I think they have to. I mean,
Yeah.
they're right in your face. How can
Yeah.
you not?
Yeah.
You know, if you're using your brain at all, you can see right there that we're killing killing people
Right.
that are innocent people. We're destroying the
Right.
minds that could solve our problems. You know, it's just nuts. And burning this weapons industry
Right.
is all about money.
Right.
It's all about capitalism.
Right.
I think it's our major export is weapons.
Right.
Yeah, and so you need wars to sell
I think
weapons.
war is our major export.
Yeah,
Right. Pretty much. Yeah.
You need the wars
Yeah.
to sell the weapons, and it's fear. It's all based
Right.
on fear.
Right.
You scapegoat one group. You say this group is the cause of the problem.
Right.
You scapegoat them. You've got everybody terrified of them.
Right.
I mean, friends of mine, they watch Fox or CNN or
You'd be terrified if you did that. Like the world is, yeah.
Yeah, and then they're afraid of everybody.
They're coming for you.
Yeah.
Immigrants, the same thing, right?
Yeah,
They're going to
it's
kill you.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's good that you see this growing awareness among students. They no longer have the choice to be passive and go on to their jobs or whatever, right? I mean, there's
Well, I wish I could say that about everybody.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are some that are just fabulous,
yeah,
and there are some that are really aware, and of course, they're the ones that are getting arrested for calling attention to
Right.
our crimes.
right,
But I mean, like Julian Assange. I mean, why should he be in prison?
Right.
He's just telling us what we need to know.
right.
that
Just
we're
for telling
doing,
the truth.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So the courageous ones get out there and raise their voice.
Right,
There are still a lot of people who prefer to close their eyes, and I understand that too. Because if you just watch mainstream media, and you're so worried about surviving,
Right.
you tend to close your eyes. I mean, we're all guilty to some degree
Yeah.
of that.
yeah.
But this is very serious. We're in a very serious.
This is a very serious moment.
Right now,
Yeah,
we're aggravated. We're supplying Israel. We've got we're fighting we're at war with Russia. We're at war with Palestine, and we're trying to go to war within China. And,
Right.
And I mean, it's insane.
Start more as if this is not enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. It has to change.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's all about money. It's
Yeah.
all about the weapons industry, and keeping people afraid.
Right.
Keeping
Because
people
fear.
afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's got to stop.
Yeah. Well, Vivian, thank you so much. I mean, it's really always very emotional for me to come to Berkeley and Sproul, especially given its history that we know, right? So it's a really, amazing place, that this is happening. So,
Yeah.
and hopefully it will have powerful effects that we can't even imagine or see.
Hopefully,
We can
hopefully,
only hope. Yeah.
hopefully,
Yeah.
So now tell me where
Thank
I'm
you
gonna
for
find
being
you.
here. I'll
Your
find you.
blog.
Yeah, so let me just cut off and I'll give you the information. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thanks, Vivian.
Well,
Yeah.